Hello, I'm here with the next chapter. So in chapter 29, Dexter told everybody that he had been to the lair that belonged to the Terribles and to the Worldstoppers. So now we're going to join them in preparation for the final pause. Chapter 30, the final countdown. On that fateful Friday morning, feeling he'd prepared as much as was humanly possible, Hamish Ellaby closed the door of 13 Lovelock Close for what he hoped would not be the last time ever. One more pause, he thought. One more pause in which to change everything. "Shut up!" he heard, as he clicked the door closed behind him. "You little pimp scrimpers! I'll wallop your lollops!" In the garden next door, Mr. Ramsface had a cruel and twisted look across his chops. He was chasing his children around the garden with a hose pipe, which was furiously spurting ice-cold water all over the place. But this was not a fun game. The children were soaked already and running around in circles, confused. "Dad!" they were shouting, unaware their father had been processed by the Worldstoppers. "Stop it!" "You little smirks!" he yelled. Behind him, Mrs. Ram's face appeared. Hamish was relieved. She'd stop him. She'd talk some sense into him. But she didn't. Instead, she started pelting the kids with tennis balls and bags of flour. "You wobbling little wretch beans!" she shouted. "You nasty old dingles!" "Mummy!" shouted little Billy Ramsface. "For the love of giant squid, stop it!" There was a tense atmosphere in town, too. Madame Couscous was putting up a sign outside her international world of treats and barking at it. "This shop no longer serves children. Friends of children, grown-ups, animals, especially chickens. Grown-ups dressed as animals, especially chickens. Friends of grown-ups dressed as animals, especially chickens." As Hamish rounded a corner, he watched in quiet astonishment as Rex Ox wrestled with Tyrus Quinn on a street corner. Children cowered in shop till you pop, their faces pressed up against the glass, wondering what on earth was going on outside. By the newsagent, the poster for the Starkley Post read, "Official, everything is rubbish." Over to one side, the postmaster had set her post office trolley on fire and was pointing at it, laughing manically. She had left a trail of open presents behind her on the street, which mingled with the torn-down flyers of Fairground Friday. Frau Fussbundler appeared to have given up going to school as well and was outside the butcher's, arm-wrestling with Mr. Longblather, who was dressed as a furious chicken, though no one knew why. And everywhere was the sound of meanness, getting louder, swirling through the air like a whirlwind, picking up anger and spreading it across the town. Things were reaching crisis point. "In less than 24 hours, the final event is due," said Alice, addressing the pause walkers. "We have one pause left to stop it ever happening. This is our last chance to bring our families back." The kids were all sitting around the ice cream van, the flashing blue light reflected in their eyes. Hamish felt an incredible surge of warmth towards Alice. Throughout all of this, she'd always been there for him, like a guardian, and he hoped, had always been there for her. They were a good team. Everyone had a lot to be proud of. "You should all have received a temporary tattoo by now." Hamish looked at his arm. It read, UP, United Pause Walkers. "This is so you can immediately recognise another pause walker," she said, "because tonight things could get messy. At around 8:30 at sunset, there will be a pause. When that happens, Buster will stop the town clock." Buster raised his hand. "But if literally everyone is at the fair and I'm all alone in the middle of town, how will I know the world has stopped? I mean, it'll be just me, all on my own, with nothing to look at to see if it's stopped." Alice realised Buster had made an excellent point. That may have well been the first time ever. "We'll turn on the light at the top of the roller coaster," she said, thinking quickly. You'll be able to see that from where you are, and then you'll know for certain that the world has stopped. The rest of you, when the terribles arrive, do not scream. Do not run. Do not even move. Do nothing at all until Hamish gives you the signal, and then cause as much chaos as possible. Hamish looked out at the kids in front of him. They seemed scared. Hamish realised he was too. But he also knew one thing. He was going to get his family back. At 8 p.m, as the light began to fade, the children started to make their way to the fairground. A huge crowd of Starkley residents was already heading towards it. The process mixed with the remaining normals, making for an unusual atmosphere. "Out of my way," a process would say. "Oh, I'm terribly sorry," a normal would reply. "Shut up, beanbag face," a process might reply. "Well, there's no need for that," the normal would say back. "Well, there's no need for you," the process would snap. Hamish stood by the roller coaster and kept his eye on everybody as they walked in. He guessed that maybe 90% of the grown-ups had now been processed. Tonight would be the night the Terribles would want to finish the job. As they entered the fairground and smelled the popcorn and petrol and acres of candy floss, the kids all spread out as agreed. They plastered on fake smiles and laughed out loud so that anyone might think they were just normal children enjoying the fair, rather than members of a highly organised and elite pause resistance unit. Hamish kept his eye on the explorer. Someone turned up the music as light became dark. 8:25, he whispered to Alice. 5 minutes to go. More and more grown-ups arrived and walked through the big brass gates of the fair. Soon they were jumping on the rides and bickering over who was first in the queue. Grown men shouted at each other as they purposefully tried to crash the dodgems into one another. Women threw balls at a coconut shy with all the ferocity of a Wimbledon tennis star serving a record-breaking shot. 8:28, whispered Alice, and Hamish cast a look around the fairground to make sure everybody was in position. "Right," she said. "I'm going to test the roller coaster light so that Buster knows when to stop the clock." She moved to the small control room by the side of the roller coaster and flicked the switch. "Did that work?" she said, looking up. "Try it again," said Hamish. She flipped the switch, but the little red light at the top of the roller coaster stayed dark. "It's broken," she said, flipping it again, up and down and up and down and up again. "It must have got knocked by that terrible the other night." She put her hands to her mouth in horror. "The light! The signal! What time is it?" Hamish checked his watch. 8:29, he said, panicking. "If Buster doesn't see the signal and stop the town clock, then this whole thing is wasted. The Terribles will come and just grab everyone, and they'll be able to see how much time they have left and take them all. What do we do? What do we do?" Hamish's mind raced. This couldn't all be for nothing. This final chance, this last attack. He spun around. "There, look," he said. He pointed at a tent marked fireworks. They were supposed to be for the big midnight finish. "Come on!" Hamish and Alice raced to the tent and pulled out every single firework they could. Big ones, small ones, enormous ones shaped like candles, ones shaped like rockets, ones with little spinny windmills on the front. "We need to set them off," said Hamish. "We need to set them all off." With incredible speed, Hamish and Alice started sticking them in the ground. "We're not supposed to be touching these," she said. "We're 10. "We're not exactly supposed to be Earth's only defence against dreadful rampaging monsters either," said Hamish. "Now quickly, we only have about 30 seconds until the pause." "What are you doing?" yelled a man, striding towards them. "Get away from those!" "There," shouted Alice. "That's all of them." "A match! We need a match! Where are we going to get a match?" "Wait!" Hamish felt in his back pocket and pulled out a small box. Belasco. Of course, the matchbox from his dad's desk. He poured out the sunflower seeds he'd put there days earlier and found a match. "You stop right there," screamed the man. Quickly, Hamish struck it against the box and held it out in front of him. As the first firework began to fizz, he lit the next, and the next, and the next. "I'm going to get your mum and dad," shouted the man. "No," thought Hamish, "I am." There he is, lighting all the fireworks. And as the first firework fizzed and popped and pirouetted into the air, Hamish kept going, lighting and lighting and lighting, until way up in the air the first firework exploded, lighting up the night sky. Another firework boomed as 3 more whizzed off into the air. Then another, then 6 more. Boom, bang, boom, boom. Flash. And all was still. The pause had begun. Hamish and Alice looked up into the night sky. 6 huge, stunning, colourful explosions still hung in the air. Trails of what looked like falling stardust frozen in the blackness, illuminating the ground below as perfectly paused grown-ups stared up at their sparkling, glistening wonder. "It's beautiful," said Alice, watching them sparkle, and for a second they could have been anywhere at all. A perfect silence stretched right the way across Starkly. No one moved. And then each and every pause walker stiffened as the quiet thunder began. "Assume your positions," yelled Hamish, and the PDF sprang into action. The terribles were coming, and they were coming fast. We'll see what happens in the next instalment.